Peace, everybody. Ramadan Mubarak to all my brothers that's out here participating in this month of purification and fasting. Stay focused. We got a lot to cover. We've already did 2 or 3 takes of this. I'm praying this is the last take. This information is very valuable. Before I go any further, I want to thank all of you who have been supporting the platform. I've got over 70, 80, especially the direct messages. Those were beautiful. Y'all keep supporting. This is a very important issue. Before I go any further, yes, they trying to open the city up. I disagree with the protocol. They don't have a available vaccine. That's not to say they never had a vaccine or don't have a vaccine, an available vaccine. So there's still risk out there. Y'all follow the protocol. This is part 3. All Black youth and endangered species issue an effective prescription. Just this time, I like to give a few shout outs. This time I have to. I've been talking to a lot of comrades, and one thing in particular, I like to say that to those of you who send in your comments, like I told you, I won't entertain a lot of foolishness. There are some things. I'm a fan of constructive criticism, but there's a difference between effective and constructive criticism versus haterism. We haven't got too much hate, what we like to say hate mail or hate comments, but you're gonna always have people on both sides of the stick. So the first thing I want to be said is that remember, if we offend anyone, we apologize for the offense, but we will not apologize for the truth. The main thing that I think that was good to me in the comments was the slowing down. I can try to slow it down. I'm very passionate when I speak, and sometimes you get caught up in the moment and we're talking. So it's not that we're trying to go fast, and we got time. If we have to shoot multiple videos, we'll do so. Before we go any further, I want you to, if you're watching this through a watch party or through a video, through the YouTube, Facebook page, we urge you to grab your family and friends, other males especially your OGs. This message needs to be played while you're riding in the vehicle. While you're sitting out with these young men, this is a message that needs to be played. But in your downtime, we want you to get it in the watch party. A lot of times when the watch party, we can't tell who's listening, how the information is conveying, because some of us will just sit back and watch. We don't want to be affiliated with certain things, and we understand that. But in your downtime, log on to YouTube. So, when you get to the YouTube, Scientific Urbanism on YouTube, when you get to the YouTube page, all you simply have to do is subscribe. I repeat, we want you to watch, we want you to listen, we want you to share this video. Go to the Scientific Urbanism YouTube page and subscribe. Push the subscribe button. It's very important in terms of conveying this message, keeping you updated on as we develop this thing. Moving on with that, we are still compiling information for other brothers that want to come on. I have about 8 videos now. And if you brothers would continue to send that information, I've seen some of them are very profound. And once we get this message out, we'll start infusing those in. But today, we do need to do a few shout outs. I'd like to give a shout out to my brother Yosef up in Dallas. When it comes to scientific urbanism, this brother was like a prodigy in terms of retaining the information. Then we have other brothers like earlier today, I sent a video, personal video. That's something I do to one of my comrades, brother Abdullah, Shaheed, brother Brian Vaughn, beautiful brother, man. And it amazes me how beautiful some of these brothers are. This brother here, character and conduct, has never been swayed. He's never been one to participate in gossip, you know, and he's remained man in this whole in the ordeal. And we have history, and because we have history coming from an institutional platform, and we've gotten out here, I want it to be known that I'm very appreciative to this brother's position that he's taken in terms of being a peacekeeper. To some of you other brothers, like I said, my big brother, I would just say A. Muhammad. He's been very instrumental. He's a soldier, works in the street, and in his own capacity, he's been very influential in from a spiritual and social perspective, and influential in my own life. But moving on, I want to get straight to the business. Now, we've already determined that black youth are an endangered species. And today, we're going to dig a little deeper into what that means. So we don't have to spend a lot of time. I don't want to spend that much time, but as God give me this thing, we may have to rehash and go over some things. One of the primary things we like to do in an SU setting, we operate from a cipher. And what we mean by cipher, we mean circle. And so in a setting of that sort, individuals would come in, and the men would sit in a circle, the women would sit in the inner circle, and then the children would sit in the inner circle, and you have an individual that will be conveying the message in the center. And this allows for an opportunity for the entire group to charge the energy. This Toastmaster, Roman oratory type, from the podium type situation, we don't ascribe for it. We think that the presentation of valuable information should be a collective involvement, and that's what we ascribe to. So consider this a cipher of such. Now, normally our ciphers will be on a Thursday or a Sunday. These are the normal days for ciphers, but today we're gonna kind of be in a cipher mode when we go into this thing. Now, last time we had the opportunity to read the mission statement of scientific urbanism. We tried to give you a picture and a look on what scientific urbanism really was. So once again, let's go over this. So scientific urbanism, it is important that as you come to understand the concepts and methodology of scientific urbanism, you also must fully realize the mission. The mission must stand out above all else. So let's get that understood. The mission must stand out above all else. Next, the mission of scientific urbanism is to teach those essential and necessary skills needed to survive life in the inner city. All right, to use cultural aspects and method that those living within the hip hop culture would readily understand. Now remember, we said hip hop culture is the current culture, and music is the key to our survival. So now it moves on to say the concept and methods have been entitled urban survival skills. The primary will empower the participant so that he or she can pursue a spiritual base and a framework to establish a self-identity. Spiritual base, framework to establish a self-identity. All right. Second, to develop the interest in college and vocational training. All right. And remember, for us, the educational pathway is to use the credentials and the paperwork to navigate the system, not to become a part of the mechanical structure. Third, to be able to apply his skills to provide food, shelter, clothing, transportation, recreation, independence, and a sense of having a legitimate income source. All right. Fourth, to take the freedom of self-independence and create a self-driven purpose for the fulfillment of self-worth and assistance of one community. Assistance of one community. So once we obtain all these other things, we want to come back in and be able to assist in the community. All right. This process is the birthplace of self-purpose. The fulfillment of purpose is the goal of all living things. In closing, Scientific urbanism defines and reveals the full working of the social machine, which is founded on 5 pillars: politics, law, religion, economics, and remember, science and technology are grouped together. All right, the participant gains the skills to function productively within the machine by using the methods of scientific urbanism, and that is the mission state. All right, so first and foremost, this is more about steps 1, 2, 3. So it is an effective prescription, steps 1 through 3. All right, and so in understanding that, when we start talking about the condition of our black youth, we told you last time that the greater cause of the problem stems from a situation of a global system of white supremacy. And we dealt with this position by quoting the great Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, her work in the ISIS paper, and where she dealt with what is called also in academic arenas is called the Cress theory. Her concept of taking racism and white supremacy and grouping them together and say that because there are less people that deem themselves people of white skin, they call themselves white, they are outnumbered in population on the earth by people they deem non-white. And because they are outnumbered, they have a fear of genetic annihilation. And this fear of genetic annihilation drives them in an aggressive manner to seek to control the entire planet, mainly through the military-industrial complex. Now, in scientific urbanism, we kind of differ with the system in terms of racism and white supremacy being grouped, because the current system in the modern world, the current system and those who run it will attack a racist, all right? And because a racist will disrupt the harmony. And the plot now is to put a black face as the symbol or in front of white power, all right? And so we deem that racism is a distraction, all right? But it is the institutions and the methodology and the system that is being used. Remember, the sister talked about that this system of white supremacy has created a structure in the academic arena where they control our ability to form symbols, to deal with our emotions, to deal elements of our sexual relationships and sexual identity, gender identity. All these things have stemmed from this system of control. Now, it controls 9 people's, 9 areas of people activity. All right, and then we included education, and like I said, sex. We included science. We included business, entertainment, even in the areas of family and war. All right, it controls these areas. All right, and so we know that that is the primary issue. Now, a lot of us are confused because we live in a time where it appears that this old system is no longer at play. All right. And that's what we're going to kind of get in today, because there's a sense of deception. But anybody watching the current political arena, you'll see that a lot of the things that were established during what you consider to be the civil rights era have been stripped away. All right. They've been stripped away systematically. We can just get into simple things when start looking at what was the college enrollment rate at the time of the civil rights movement. What was the 2-parent statistics in the home at the time of civil rights compared with these times? All right, with the employment rates, the accumulation of degrees, independent black-owned businesses, and many other things. All right, we can see how from that time these things have been stripped down. And so when we start talking about black males and endangered species, we made it real simple. We told you that the entire world, not the earth, but the entire world is ruled by predominantly white males in different forms and fashions. You know what I'm saying? Because when we start talking about the phenotypes and the cultural perspective, a lot of us get confused and not understanding what the Western world hierarchy really is. We get confused. because we start using titles like Jew, and we start using titles like Eastern Europe and Western Europe and all these things, and they all are the same thing. All right. And we'll get into that. But anyway, because there's a threat now for the power grab of the planet, because one particular people are being erased, and they're not being erased due to war and weaponry, engaging in military conflict. They're being removed genetically. All right. And the threat to white domination is the fact that black biology poses a threat, especially black males who have the ability to intermingle and destroy genetically the white biology. All right. And so in understanding that, we move down now, we come out of the systematic function, and then we bring it all the way down to a playing field where we can deal with it and touch it up close. And I want us to be very careful, because a lot of times when we get one who talks in this fashion, we think that we're talking about some form of militancy, or this is, this radicalism, or you seem to be an angry black man, or you placing blame on the white establishment. And we get confused because those were excuses and justifications created by the system. All right. So when we start talking about our black youth and endangered species, black men and women, for some of the comments came and said I put too much emphasis on the men. Well, we talking about young black men and women. Now in SU, we believe in our 12 rules of the game of life. We make it very clear that there's a rule that says the black and the brown man are one nation. So when we say black, African American, or people of African descent, and we say brown, we're talking about the aboriginals or natives or so-called Latino or Mexican Americans. You know what I'm saying? They're one nation. We don't separate them as two different types of people. All right. And in the hip hop culture, it's evident that we've unified, you know what I'm saying, on the cultural aspect amongst the youth. This is a reality, and they're just as much attacked and a threat as young black males. It's about inner city life. And we can add poor whites and others in this equation. All right. So now, when we start talking about the remedies and the prescriptions and the solutions, before I go a little further, I want to address, some of the comments. Like I said, I talked to a lot of brothers this week, and a couple of brothers in particular, I see where the information can appear to be sensitive, and if you got thin skin, you can't have thin skin. You got to understand and listen very carefully of what's being said and not take offense. And a lot of times our offense, taking offense, is a defense to protect our own psychological enslavement. Sometimes we are offended because we've been programmed like Rottweilers and watchdogs to protect the establishment. So on a psychological level, it's like having a guard dog in your brain. You're trying to protect something that means you no good, And so we gotta be very careful with that. All right, especially dealing with the youth. Now, in terms of ideologies and concepts, I want to be as mild as I can possibly, but this issue resonates home with me as an OG. And a lot of you asked me, you were saying, well, I want to get more, we need to get more into, how the curriculum works. Well, a lot of you listening to this and that will hear this already know that there are brothers out here that have left the institutional platform, came out into society, and have started nonprofit organizations. They've got master degrees and doctoral degrees and are part of the social arena, have opened up businesses, have taken control in managing their own families, have become managers at top corporations, and you was affected by this platform. So when you start talking about, let's get into the work, experience all right? And the proof that resides in the pudding, a lot of that is already out there, all right? But we will do our best, to convey a little bit more in tune with that. But in dealing with the information, we have to be very careful. Now, some of you brothers are still stuck on this issue with making a religious position, and when we begin to talk, it appears to me that a lot of you start to get antsy, and you immediately, the moment we not coming from a traditional Southern Baptist fanatical religious position, you immediately flee from the dialogue. And that's not what this is about. All right. We have to be men. We have to be stern. All right. And I call on the OGs, you know what I'm saying, to be more vocal and making individuals who have been disconnected from this reality understand that when you're dealing with these young men ages 19 to 35, not to exceed 45, you have to be more stern. This is not a passive situation. And when we start talking, my brother was telling me the other day, I think it was yesterday, about judgment. All right. Well, your scripture tell you that God has given man the ability to make judgment. I mean, from a young age, you have the ability to judge between right and wrong. So we don't want to get into these issues about making judgments. All right. We call it the entire record in account. And a lot of us, through our own mistakes, have gained the experience to deal with this situation. So it ain't about judgments. It's like the light bulb. All right, 1,001 attempts to make a light bulb, and not a light bulb is everywhere. So a lot of us have stumbled and failed and had to get back up, stumbled and failed and had to get back up, in order to get to this point to where we have enough experience to deal with the current culture. All right. So let's not deal with a situation where we're dealing with judgments. All right. So now, moving on, one of the first things we're going to do today is we're going to go back to part 2. And if you haven't heard part 2, this is your first time tuning in, then go to the YouTube page, Scientific Urbanism, and listen to part 1 and part 2. All right, then move to part 3. But if you want to listen in and get this the food out of part 3, welcome to the presentation. Now, we said that one of the key components in dealing with our youth is them having identity. All right, identity. So we did a segment on identity crisis at a glance, and we live in a society now where young men and women do not know how to make transitions from childhood to so-called the teenager phase to adulthood. All right. And you have individuals that think just because they are male or female that they automatically qualify for womanhood or manhood. They think they automatically qualify. All right. That when they turn 18 or 21 years of age, they automatically qualify for manhood or womanhood. Now that hood, as the suffix or the prefix, identifies the function that should be emanating from this equation. All right. And so it's not an automatic situation. OK, so we read about the 6 qualities of man, and we told you that man, in spiritual sense, mathematically speaking, is a 6 in rotation to a 7, 7 representing the qualities of God, or one who's God conscious in the earth dimension. All right. And 9 being the female number, man also being able to be a 1. These are cornerstones of a particular position that these individuals play in this dimension. All right. So going back to the 6 qualities of manhood. All right. And these are important. All right. And you should be able to create a dialogue from these qualities with your young men. So if you was to ask a young man, say, well, what makes you man? All right. You should be able to grade it against something. And we've been successful. Remember, this is a proven prescription. All right. And the success is in the pudding. All right. So the first thing we do we come and we ask these. We explain and we ask them to give us feedback. It say the following six qualities, or let us say elements, are the essential features that make a manhood. Without them, there is no manhood. Only a male body in an unnatural state. All right. So the first one is a man must have a relationship with his God. So out of the six qualities of manhood, the first thing is a man must have a relationship with God, with his God. All right. And we inject and we ask these young men to explain this. All right. We tell them in giving these particular qualities that, remember, man without God is animal. Then we go to number two. A man must have knowledge. What type of knowledge? Knowledge about the purpose and the function of life. We explain that without a certain type of knowledge, not knowledge of the sports, not knowledge of the weather, but a particular type of knowledge, man won't be able to survive. Number three, a man must have integrity. Now, once a man has a relationship with God, and then man has knowledge of the function and purpose of life, then we get into this issue of integrity. And we instill the fact that when we start talking about morals, this Friedrich Nietzsche type, Hume type reference to morals being an extraction from penal law, when a man has ethics, he becomes a law unto himself. And that automatically puts him in a state to when he also has a relationship with his God and has proper knowledge, then he's able to coexist, you know what I'm saying, above man-made laws. So there's no infraction because his integrity is intact. And the only transition in that we can put in Western society is having a system of ethics. All right. A man must be clean, organized in thoughts, deeds, and personal things. A lot of times you can, especially amongst younger men and women, you can go in around them and look at their hygiene. You can go and look into their living areas and see that it's disorganized. And this disorganization of the way they keep their things is a representation of the internal operation of the mind. They have a lot of things going on in the mind. They're not organized. All right. And this leads into SU on having a life plan and things of economic budgets and many other things, exercise regimens and understanding food diets and all these things deals with organization. Number five, a man must be able to control his emotions. And the fifth one, man must be able to control his emotion. Well, that's a thing that's going on now. In this current system, our men, our young boys have become hyper emotional. And we told you in the last segment that there were 7 developmental stages that we must develop through. And we found that the first stage being a child stage, psychologically, meaning that we can have 30-year-old children, 50-year-old, 60-year-old children. All right. Then we said pre-adult. And then we went to the woman. That third stage, well, 75% of all of the young black men you will meet, especially in the ages of 19 to 35, not to exceed 45, have been infeminized in a way. And they don't even know it. All right. Hair trigger tempers, very impatient, very selfish. They have a whole bunch of feminine ways that should be the attributes in a woman to a certain degree. And we're not being chauvinistic, but our men have a lot of the manners of women. And this comes from having a preoccupation with the womb by not having a masculine figure in play, all right, to develop and cultivate these essential qualities. So they've been raised by women, and they're stuck there, and they're preoccupied in sexual things. They have a lot of deviant psychological things going on in their mental sphere because of this. So they can't control their emotions. They have 100 fears. A lot of times you'll see a person and you'll think that he's very violent, but really he's very afraid. And his mask and costume that he puts on is this symbol of being a very dangerous and violent individual. That's the veil, something going on a deeper level, not being able to control the emotions. And some of you school teachers and some of you women that are trying to rear boys in a certain age group, you know what I'm talking about. All right. Number 6. A man must be responsible. When it comes to responsibility and being accountable, oh man, we're in trouble. Responsibility and being accountable. A man must be responsible. So these are the 6 qualities. And then it goes on to say, in summary, a man must seek out to know his God and follow the laws established by his creator. See how we use that word his? So that's to dispel any of this compulsion issue, thinking that we're trying to force upon anyone our particular belief. We're sharing with you this information. And you can freely choose and accept or reject out of the plate what you don't want to eat. All right? A man must be accumulate knowledge to prepare him for his journey in life. Knowledge to prepare him for his journey in life. Not all this gossip and reality. This is not reality TV. This is presentational facts. You know, a lot of us are preoccupied with what we call reality TV, not even understanding that Hollywood has played a raw game. Most of that stuff is scripted. You can't edit life, so they have to have the right information for their journey in life. It said a man must have the integrity or self-discipline for himself, all right, and be able to reason as he travels. Next, a man must not live in a chaotic state, but have a clean and organized thought pattern, organized actions, all right. And then it says, and be neat and clean in his effects, living area, car, whatever he's dealing with, clothes, hygiene. All right, a lot of our young people don't even understand proper hygiene. We got a lot of young women don't understand proper hygiene. All right. He must control his emotions, especially his fears. All right, that which anger him and his love for others. He has to deal with his fears, his anger, and how he has relationships and love for others. A lot of our young men have artificial relationships. They call everybody is my homeboy. Everybody is my dude, my friend. And they don't even understand the true components of friendship. All right. So they get caught up in these false relationships. All right. In the completion of his person, he must take full responsibility for all of these things and establish his place in the sun. So these are the 6 qualities of manhood for man. Now, some we didn't do last week that we're going to do this week. All right. But before we do this, as we go along, I said I was going to be a little bit slower. Be sure that you stop any portion of this tape, of this recording, and share this information with your colleagues and bring about a dialogue. You know what I'm saying? You may say there are more qualities of manhood. We beg to differ. We went through looking at and dissecting and putting the manhood under the microscope from a spiritual position. We looked at him as a mental creature. We looked at him, his physiology. We looked at the emotional aspect on the square. We come to the sum total at a convenience that it was 6 qualities. And not only because scripturally speaking, we deal with these spiritual days of man being made on the 6th day or supreme mathematics, and we're dealing with the rotation of this man coming from a 6 into a 7. We understand that there are some base qualities. We can add a bunch of other stuff, all right? But these are the qualities that our young men must identify with to begin what? A dialogue. All right, next. We're going to deal with the woman. Now, I might not be able to fully go through all of the elements of the woman, but I want to introduce this because I had an interesting comment from a sister, and she was talking about, sometimes these young women are worse off than these young boys. So let's read this. And this is what we teach in scientific urbanism, urban survival skills. It says that the black woman must be respected, for she is the true physical essence by which the God force manifests itself into the material dimension. Hear what I said? The black woman, brown woman, and all women, but primarily this black woman must be respected, all right? For she is the true physical essence by which the God force manifests itself into the material dimension. And then we use the terms God, Allah, Yahweh, Nitta, whatever one you want to use, however you identify, all right? Took the 9 best qualities out of itself and created the woman. We of the schools of supreme wisdom know that black is not a color, but is the actual state and essence by which all things are brought into creation. So we don't even call black a color. So when we start talking about this racist talk, or this, we don't even look at it as a color. All right, we look at black as the essence by which all things have been brought into existence. And so when we start breaking things down scientifically, we got to look deeper into this black woman. And we're going to go on. It says that supreme wisdom, all things right. Black matter is the substance of the universe. The God force, through emotional expression, pushed a single atom of life out of himself to show forth creation. He, it. Now, in European languages, this he and she, in terms of dealing with divine things, has created a confusion. This is one of when we start talking about the state and the condition of our people. This is one of them. In Semitic languages, which are the languages that the scriptures were revealed out of, whether you say you follow Judaism or Christianity or Islam, this word huwa, this particular word means an it. So we understand that the God, the creative mind, the universal mind is neither a male or a female, but the origin of both, right? Not a male or a female, but in English language, because it's coming from a like the Sister Marimbi Annie talks about the isili, the germ root of a culture. This particular thinking behavior of being misogynistic, all right, makes that everything that has power and dominance in that culture, they make it a sense of being masculine, all right? No, the creator is neither male nor female, but the origin of both. And we're going to get into this. And this is very important when you start applying sexes. This is some elementary thinking. Kindergarten. You're putting sexes, you know what I'm saying, on the God when he is the creator, or it is the creator of sexual reproduction systems and organs. So how can you apply sex? And so this is when this thing get deep. Now, when we start talking about God in person, and we start talking about Adam, the Adamo, or we start talking about the Caliphate, the Caliphate, or we start talking about the Oseb, that which has been manifested to represent God in this dimension, now we're talking about man and God and woman as goddess. Then we're talking about that particular issue. But when we start talking about the origin of creation, we got to get beyond sexes, all right? And this is where there's gender confusion, because don't nobody know what the roles and how the origin and how the systems is set up. And this is why we got all these different freak behaviors and things going on. But anyway, dealing with this black woman, it says, the black is not a color, but the actual state and essence by which all things are brought into creation. Black matter is the substance of the universe. The God force, through emotional expression, pushed a single atom of life out of himself to show forth creation. It does this by utilizing the female polar force, all right, which is matter, called negative pole, and the positive force, which is male, called energy, to create a sense of balance, all right? So both forces, a duality, a principle of duality, all right? And when we get into the principle of duality, we start to understand that one force has a positive pole, one has a negative, and not negative in terms of wrong, but one is progressive, one is recessive, one is dominant, one, you know, and this is talking about the male and female forces in nature. So it's not being that one is greater than the other one, that the woman is weaker than the man and the man is strong. No, these are different roles. And when we understand this, and when we take young men up and they start to understand, they start to change their look, how they look at the woman and how they look at themselves, all right? Then it says that, so the black woman, who is the first woman in the sun, is more than a mere piece of physical entertainment or a social emotional crutch for a dysfunctional male ego. Did you hear what I say? She's more than a piece of flesh and entertainment, nor is she a crutch for a dysfunctional male ego. That's where we are right now. Either we take our women and we turn them into sex toys or forms of entertainment, all right? Or she becomes a crutch. You know what I'm saying? For those of us say, well, I'm pimping out here. You know, I'm a player. You know what I'm saying? Be careful. And we're going to tell you why you need to be very careful. All right. So It says she is goddess, mother of all creation. Her number is 9 in supreme math and manifests the power of it as 9 multiplied by anything reproduces itself or gives birth to itself. So we can take numbers like 9 times 9 is 81, but 8 plus 1 is 9, and 9 times 6 is 54, but 5 plus 4 is 9. These are proven facts. Like I say, we use history, science, and mathematics to verify our truth. All right, so this is consistent with the fact that woman has 9 holes on her body, and we can go all through 9 and run it every kind of way you want to run it. This is a feminine number. All right. Now, the first quality, before we go a little further, she is God's nature. All right, form, and is one half of God's physical self. The earth symbolizes her as form, and it is your purpose as God's energy or will, God's energy or will. So you as the man, as God's energy or God's will. So we have one is form, matter, and one is energy, will. So you got form and will. So you got form in woman being the substance of things. Then you have the force that moves through it as energy and will as the masculine. These are two forces. And men need to understand they have a role in nature. All right. So God, the woman is one half of God's nature. All right. They say the earth symbolizes her form, and it is your purpose as God's energy and will in the flesh to cultivate her and establish a nation rooted in righteousness. No nation can rise higher than the condition of his woman. So think about that. No nation. When you look at a nation, as I was taught by my spiritual teacher, if you look at a nation and you look at the condition of his women, then he could tell you what the condition of that nation is. If the women are decent, if the women are respectful and honorable, if the women are God-fearing, all right, if the women support the men in a mutual understanding with a mutual relationship and collective operation and productivity, then the nation will thrive. But once the nation, woman, has become demoralized and broken down and come out of her original nature, then the nation is in trouble. So what condition is this nation in? And why a woman is a nation is because a man cannot bear children. All right? Do you understand what I said? A man cannot bear children. So a woman can bring up out of her womb an entire civilization. And so we need to know how we're dealing with that. And see, a lot of us will be surprised when we start breaking this thing down. But now we got a lot of brothers that will feel like they come from a higher science, a scholastic science. And inside Islam, we have a formula. It's called the Bismillah. Right, it's a formula. All right, in the first part of the formula, it said Bismillahi ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. That Rahman, when you take it down into its root, it means womb. Whoa, it means womb. So what are we talking about? This particular woman, then the attribute and the energy and the operation coming from the divine consciousness is a sense of dispelling a sense of grace upon creation. Like a mother would, all right. In philosophical and scholastic corners in the Islamic society, there's a hadith that talks about this particular function and says that there are 99 parts of it. And the parts we get in the earth dimension is what stops a mother deer from trampling her young. But it means womb. And then you get into the Rahim, and it deals with a sense of grace earned that for the deeds that man operate through, that he's gaining a sense of spiritual blessings of such. All right, and that's masculine. All right, so we have these two functions. Once again, the feminine and the masculine operating and working. All right, but we don't teach from this perspective. And if we talk from a duality perspective, from the atom to the manifested organism or to the creation of products and goods and systems and services and everything, then our people wouldn't be confused because they would know the role of a man and they would know the role of a woman. All right. Number 2, she is the source of reproduction. There are 3 things God will always be or do. Number 1, God is the truth, so he cannot be a lie. 2, God is self-created. All right. And 3, once God created itself, it will always use the woman or the essence of the female to reproduce himself. So it is through Number one, God cannot tell a lie. So when we start talking about consciousness in a few minutes, the highest degree of truth is the God. There's no lie in it. And then next, the God force is self-created. And when we deal with the element of self-creating, once it manifests self into a dimension, the reproduction of it has to come through a form, and that form is feminine and woman. All right. And so when we start to understand these things, once again, it increases our understanding. All right, so now the next one. She is the first teacher of the black child. From ages 1 to 6, the mother is the most vital force in the new child's, what we call in SU, a son of Earth's life. So we look at men as black sons, in our cosmological function, and women as Earths, what I'm saying, in the same function. All right, and so listen how critical this is. Now, the first teacher of the offspring is going to be the mother. Now, if we look at the family as an incubator, all right, and functional families are going to produce functional so-called human beings, then a dysfunctional family is going to produce the opposite. It's like scripturally being read and saying that we will know a tree by its fruit. So if you got a corrupted tree, a poison tree, a diseased tree, what kind of fruit you going to get from this tree? So when you turn a woman upside down and reverse her role, and she starts to take on these other identities, what is going to happen to the children? What state, if she, for the vital developmental years, you got blocks of years, ages 1 to 3 and 3 to 6, and then we're going through these years, and then we got to deal with prenatal education because the child is learning in the womb. So what are we doing? All right, what are we producing? When we start talking about the woman as the first teacher of the child, then we go on, she is the greatest reflection of what God is and shows his wisdom, not only as earth, all right, but also as the moon, which equates the rotation with her reproductive cycle every 28 days. God's wisest words come from the lips of a woman. So we look at knowledge as a masculine principle. We look at wisdom as a feminine principle. When you get in scripture, it starts calling her her, wisdom or her. And then we get into understanding being the offspring of the conjoining or the combination of knowledge and wisdom. So when we start looking at God's wisdom being spoke through the mouth of a woman, here go another function. All right, so now we understand when we got this idea of not listening to our women, this is why we get in trouble. And it's hard to understand which way to go now because our women are turned upside down with this radical feminism. When you watch television, all the symbology of women are dominating everything that goes on. They're moving these women into a position of power. Now, a lot of that has to do with the celestial and cosmological period that we're in, being in the season and in the year of Aquarius. But at the same time, because nature will protect herself, and when she needs to protect herself, she's going to produce strong women, all right, you know what I'm saying, seeking to produce what is required out of the womb. But anyway, we talk about the machine as producing the imagery and promoting radical feminism. When you turn on television and the programming that most so-called black and brown people will watch, you almost got a man that's irrelevant. Either he's a coon, a comedian where he has to act a coon and shine or he's feminine or almost homosexual or directly homosexual. And if he's a black dark complexion man with beard and has masculine features, they are almost extracting from a woman and put him with a European. So you got a confusion that goes on in the symbology and images, like Francis Quest Weston, that they are controlling the images to where now black women are believing that black men are worthless and cannot be trusted, and that they're slow and dumb and criminalistic. You know what I'm saying? And this is all by design. So when you start talking about endangered species, these are things that are in the play. We'll go to one or two more. We say number 5. She is the greater helper for God's divine will and cosmic plan, for she is the first to submit and to react to power. She's the first to submit and react to power. In this sense, she is the first believer. We can say Muslim. We can say the first Christian believer, true Christian believer. The first one to believe is the woman. She will help God meet his plan through the productive function of the black family, which is the building block of civilization. The black family is the building block of civilization. So this woman bowing down to power And if you're a man and you have no power, then your woman won't respect you. Right now, if you don't have financial power, you sure won't get no respect because of the way women have been designed. It was a time, the natural order is for a man to be God powerful, to be God led, to be God fearing, and she sees God in the image of God and the manifestation of the qualities of God in a man, and she submits to that power. Now, it's become an economic thing. You know what I'm saying? It's become a financial thing. To where now it's about who wearing the pants, who earns the money, and gender rights and feminine and woman rights and woman liberation and all these things going on. To where now a black man who is not cultivated properly don't stand a chance. So when you look at the black community and you see that divorce is up 90%, that most marriages, people can live together 7, 8, 9 years, but married, they last in 90 days to 1 year, they're divorced, separated, that the marriages are not lasting. And when you look at the attitude of the women, they've set a standard now to where they want a black man with a white mind. Do you understand that? How dangerous that is? Because now they've bought into the gross materialism, that their status and understanding is about how material they can present themselves, all the way to fake lashes, fake asses, fake lips, skin colors, different color hair. They've lost their entire identity. All right. And they want the man to finance this madness. And when a man can't finance the madness, he becomes less than man. You understand? And these little boys and girls are watching this, and they're learning this from a young age. You understand what's going on? Because she's lost her qualities. And in SU, the man learns these qualities so he can teach this and share this with his woman to properly lead. Now, in both books, the Bible being the book of the left hand and the Quran being the book of the right hand, in Islam, it is mandatory that men must be protectors and maintainers of women. The Bible says that the man would have dominant and rule, and then women should be submissive to their husband. What happened to that? Where that went? You get to talking to somebody about submission and roles in the household, they say, well, man, that's that old stuff. That's our day. We ain't about that no more. That's the conversation. And then so you want to know, what is the condition and state of our young boys? All right. So if the enemy in his conniving manner understood this science at the highest level, his first attack would have to be what? On the family. So in order to destroy the production, you know what I'm saying, of the most valuable elements at this time, which would be men that could what? Protect and build their community, men that could build their own industry, men that could become independent and create a society that would be beneficial for his people. He's a threat. And so the whole agenda has been to destroy these type of individuals. I don't get that. Do you get it? So in going on here, I'm gonna say this, talk about the woman, because we need to move on. So we got 9 qualities of womanhood, and we stopped at 5 or 6. You know, I think that's a lot. You know, and that's one of the complaints, man. You're getting so much. Let's deal with some things. So when we start dealing with these young men and we bring them in and we sit them down, since we're talking about steps, remember the first thing we do is we ask them those 4 questions. Who are you? What are you? What is your purpose in life, young man? And who or what dictates your person, your purpose, sister, young sister? And what we call each other, we call young men in Dugu, or Lil Brick. We call our sisters Aktuns, Dada, or we call them core stones. These are titles so we can extract them out of their normal cultural identities and get out of this nigga. Now, we understand it in music, niggas in expression, because I'm a fan of hip hop music, and I understand truly that music is the key to our survival, and being able to combine the elements of hip hop culture to infuse a curriculum is the only thing that's going to save our people. All right, so now, getting into this thing and dealing with how we do it and some steps, the first thing we had to do is what? We bring them in and we identify and we get the roles back in order. You know what I'm saying? We make them understand this was your role. These are the roles that you should play. All right. And from an OG perspective, all right, we take them out of the machine and we bring it down to the bare minimum of operating from the streets. All right, because this is what our young people are at. Now, what we do is we explain. Man and woman have to go through the square. All right. So it's about bringing balance. So when you deal with a people that is sick, we use the term dis-ease. So when you take the word dis-ease to be diseased, our people have a disease, and the disease is niggerism. All right. The disease is niggerism. That's the disease. It ain't the coronavirus. It's niggerism. And let me explain to you. So God, the creator mind, created what you call man and woman. The devil came and made niggers. All right. And this creature that's called the nigger, not only in our first form of education was blind, deaf, and dumb with no knowledge of self, but he's also become an individual who is loud and boisterous. He's a clown. He's argumentative in every regard. He's oversexed, hypersexed. He's lazy. You know what I'm saying? He will eat anything. He will do anything. He will say anything. He's a poor parent. He's addicted to drugs. He's a gambler. He's a criminal. You know what I'm saying? He will argue over a dime and kill over a penny. This is the condition of niggerism. And this is a disease that we have been infected with. All right? It's a disease. And in order to cure a disease, what a physician does is bring balance. So as we go through our curriculum, one of the things we make them understand is the square. That a man must be square. So at the fourth degree of development, child, pre-adult, woman, and man should have went through spiritual development, at least 10 years of spiritual development, at least 10 years of mental development, at least 10 years of physical development, at least 10 years of emotional development. That's a total of 40 years. My spiritual father has already informed and taught us that women mature at age 28 because they have to be prepared to be mothers and wives. Men, on the other hand, do not spiritually mature until age 40. And they're not even masculinely mature and should be established until age 30. So all this stuff about age 18 and 21, they grown, let them do what they don't know nothing. They're not prepared. And y'all been doing this for generations. Turn them loose to the world at 18 and 21. They're not ready to do nothing. How dare you? This is the square. And in the middle, you see the ankh. And the ankh to us symbolizes a fully realized individual. They call it the Egyptian key of life by some people. We don't like the term Egyptian. All right, that's a Greek term, Greek-Roman term, come from the word agos, meaning burnt face. We use the word cam, meaning the chemistry, the alchemata, the essence, the black one. So we deal with this. This is one who is harmonized, who is spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally harmonized. They have found balance, and they are in a healthy state. All right, so if a person is spiritually, mentally, and physically balanced, but not emotionally balanced, he's still sick. If he's spiritually, emotionally, and physically balanced, but not mentally balanced, he's still sick. So when you start dealing with our condition and what's wrong with the young people, they're unbalanced. And the reason that they are unbalanced because they don't have any identity, nor is there a spiritual base that will cater to explaining the roles. Most of the roles that you got in scripture are philosophical. Because when you have scripture without science, you have a philosophy. In order for it to be accurate, there has to be a scientific application. You have to be able to explain things. You can't just talk about these things. You can't talk about life and death and spirit and demons and angels and right and wrong without a scientific application. You have to be able to explain anything. So they draw to us in our curriculum because we answer questions that they have inside themselves that their parents can't answer. All right. And it kills me, you know what I'm saying, that we got two factions. And it's stuck between the Martin and the Malcolm dilemma. So we have these people that feel like that because we got civil rights, which we never got rights, we only got privileges. And when you understand constitutional law and the application of what happened with the Civil Rights Bill, you'll know that you only have privileges. But anyway, let's just say for a second. So we have what is called civil rights legislation. And so we think at the passing of civil rights legislation that blacks got a better deal and that things changed. And you didn't understand that this was a decision made above Martin, that Martin was being used to quell civil disruption in society. And that Martin Luther King of 63 is different from Martin Luther King of 68. And if you study, just block off and study Martin of 68, then you will understand that his mind changed towards his whole agenda. All right. In terms of civil disobedience and nonviolence, you'd be appalled. But they crystallized and picked him as a hero and used the philosophy to quell social disobedience and to deceive us into thinking that the system had changed. Now you got Malcolm. So a lot of you think Malcolm, y'all love him, y'all like to watch the movie. Spike Lee made the movie, Malcolm X, y'all love it. But when it comes to having to emulate the manhood and the true qualities of Malik El Shabazz, see, y'all like the Malcolm Little, then the transit Malcolm, but you don't understand the transition, the soldier, the warrior, you know what I'm saying? It's too difficult. You know what I'm saying? It's too difficult. But the establishment has blinded you to where now you haven't been able to produce a duplicate. Out of all these years, 50, almost 60 years from civil rights legislation and from these brothers there, 50 to 60 years, you haven't been able to produce another individual that was that impacted, because through systematic protocols, everything from COINTELPRO to CIA protocol, everything, through all of areas of people activity, through the main elements of law, politics, economics, religion, all right, science and technology, they have deceived you and have forced you to where if one of those kind of brothers stood up before you, you would label them enemy. And that's sad. And a lot of the young people, they cry for that. They want to see the resurgence of that. And we've had beautiful activities from a lot of brothers in the community. Minister Farrakhan has done a great work with what he done. But after the 1 million man, the 2 million man march, it was a sort of an imprisonment that because of the religious banner, you know what I'm saying? Not saying that the NOI could not be effective, and it has not been effective, but the issue is one thing. We still have to make a religious decision. With all the things we love about what goes on, we have to make religious decisions. And so until a universal platform that would be engineered through the social construct of the present culture that the young people were in, that had no other identity other than to express our God-given qualities, nothing else would work. You would get some success, you know what I'm saying? And most of the success is going to come from the progenitors, just like most of the people that are in the church, they're there because granny and mama's there. Most of the people that's in most of the organizations there, they're there because granny and mama there. Now, I watched something phenomenal because it was a war on black men. See, right after the civil rights, they waged a war on drugs. And the war on drugs was the next method to re-enslave and re-assault the black male objective through imprisonment. All right, and if you haven't studied it, you need to read Texas Tough. You need to read The New Jim Crow. And there are several other books out there. You need to read about the prison-industrial complex and what the target for the prison-industrial complex and what the war on drug really was. You can't wage war on a drug. You got to be waging war on the consumers and the distributors of it. All right, and you're only doing that at a certain degree. So when we start talking about our condition, we have been deceived. And the greatest deception of the modern world is two. Number one, to put a black face on white power. Our youth see through it. To put a black face on white power. And we're not going to go into it today, but we have so-called thought we have elected someone who would favor us in terms of going through the legislative portal when all we do is elect what? Black faces to represent white power. All right. Now, so when we bring these youngsters in and we start to deal with our curriculum and we deal with first answering those 4 vital questions, next introducing them to the qualities, we next then move them to 12 rules of the game of life. There are 12 rules to the game of life. There are 7 virtues that they must rehearse and learn. And then we go into 12 aspects of expressing life and then 12 elements of a value system. These are the preliminary things that they must go to even begin the reprocessing of their mold. Remember, we call them bricks, so they have to reprocess in their mold. All right, and so in terms of the prescription The first thing that we have to do is dig deep, deep, deep into the programming to remove the programming. Now, we've covered a lot. I'm going to get ready to start, going in another direction. But before I do, I want to touch on a few things. All right. So one of the things, the problems is that you're going to have with your young black men, and this is and females, is we have to break the cycle of our concepts of success. So one of those things is you want your son and daughter go to school, and when you go to school, go out and get you a job. And we're not understanding why they so adamant of fighting against this. What's going on? Why they fighting this element of going out and getting a job and going to school? All right. You're not giving a reason why other than to make money. All right. And I'm not talking about everyone. Some of you are conscious enough to understand the difference. All right. So you want them to go to school to go out and get a job for what? All right. This is where the scheme come in. So we think that because we live in a society now where we have certain privileges, as you call rights, and that the laws have changed, we have totally deceived generations. All right. And it goes all the way back to the fact that the 13th Amendment did not free slaves. It legalized slavery. And immediately after the abolishment of slavery, the criminal justice system emerged. And so when you start talking about the structural system coming from a plantation-driven system, all right, or indentured servant, however you want to put it, you think that all that kind of talk, man, that's old, man. We ain't dealing with that, man. That's that old stuff. All right, man, it ain't them killing us, it's us killing them. Well, you say, well, blacks killing blacks. True, statistically speaking, more blacks kill blacks, but who make the guns? Do you manufacture the guns? All right. How are they getting the guns? All right. So what we got to go back to and understand is that the first thing you tell your child when they go out into college and then, find a field of study. Think about that now. You say the plantation is gone, but they go to college and they enter a field to go out into a field. So the cotton plantation is no longer the effective mode of operation because they have machines and equipment and they got a few men, and that's a whole nother story. But now we're in a virtual plantation where now you go out into the field and you work into this industrial plantation. So you're still going out in the field because your sweat, your blood, your energy is not doing anything to produce anything for self. And these young people, they don't want nothing to do with that. They rebellion. You know what I'm saying? And the reason I know is because when you talk to them, most of them are enterprises. They want to do something for self. Both of my daughters right now. You know what I'm saying? Trying to open their own businesses. And they know clearly well, have been groomed properly well to know that your objective and goal is not to go off into the system, but to extract out of the system using the paperwork. That's what we teach them. That's why we motivate for college and vocational training so that they can obtain the credentials to be able to navigate the machine. It's like having a driving license, or a hammer, and this, a tool and a weapon or a gun. Shoot, it's a weapon. The paperwork and your credentials, these are nothing but weapons to be able to navigate the machine. This is what we teach them, how to decode and navigate the machine. All right. So when you start talking about education, our presentation of education is called a university without walls. Yeah. So we take them and we educate them in a university without walls. So by the time they hit an institutional form of education, whether they're trying to get their GEDs or maintain in school or hit college, they are already advanced. And Brother Joseph, you understand this. We say we learn 10 things a day. So if I learn 10 units of information, and what I'm talking about 10 things a day, I'm not talking about the weather, I'm not talking about who in the draft, I'm not talking about what's the lotto numbers, I'm talking about essential things. There are 7 master sciences, and we'll get into that. And they go from everything from chemistry to botany to biology, but these are master sciences. All right. And it deals with all of the relevant things. And we break down the master science and into the sub-sciences where we get into those 5 things. We learn this. So every day, 10 things. In a month, 30 days, we've learned 300 things. In a season, which is 90 days, We've learned right at 1,000 things in a whole year, about 4,000 things. In 2 years, we learned 4,000. We were at 2 years, we had at 8,000 things. We've outpaced our peers. Do you understand it? We've outpaced our peers. There are 4 seasons in a year. That's 4,000, 8,000 within 2 years. The time it takes a normal student to get an associate degree in our university without wall, we're already advanced. This is the educational process. This is how these brothers were able to leave the institution. And instead of being behind time, they were far advanced. And this is what we present in our curriculum. You must learn 10 new things every day. Not only are they learning 10 new things in terms of the structure and the sciences of life, but they're also learning languages, all right? Learning crafts and arts and craft. They're learning different things, different other skills to harness and bring out their internal skills. So this brings me to a point, because I get a lot of this dialogue, all right? And then we're going to hash this thing on in. We get a lot of people that, I was riding with a relative, he say, well, what makes me conscious, kinfolk? You know, what makes me or makes me not a part of the conscious community? So what is consciousness? And then I get a lot of people that will direct message and say, well, man, what you feel about these brothers over here and these brothers here? So real and short, so y'all understand, there's something called the conscious community, all right? And most of the brothers are on YouTube and they're out of the East Coast, and you got some in the West Coast, all right? We ain't got nothing coming out of the South, all right? The Southern Negro, it's a whole different creature. Ain't nobody coming out of the South with this element of consciousness. We got 1 or 2 brothers that I've heard from. But consciousness. So we understand that the Creator is supreme consciousness. And consciousness is the ability to decode information and encode information in order to create new forms of expressing life. So when we start talking about consciousness, we talk about all the way down to the molecular level of consciousness. Atoms are conscious. So when we start talking about, people start talking, well, I'm conscious. They think they conscious because they woke. They conscious. No, we're not talking. We're talking about spiritual and mental consciousness. The ability to decode information. So in your environment, what all can you decode? You can set a computer in front of some people and they lost. I'm not talking about use it. I'm talking about can you tear it down, put it back together. That's the ability to what? Decode and encode information. In the computer field, as analysts do, in the computer analysts, they call it coding. All right. And the brain, or the mind, as you call it, is the most superior computer on the earth. All right. So when we start talking about our youth, all right, and we start talking about the woman being the teacher for the first 1 to 6 years, who has cultivated her mind? So a lot of us think, man, I got my own mind. How do you have your own mind? When, first of all, mind is separate from brain. You have 3 brains. You have a right brain, a left brain, and a neutral sphere. You also have a guttural system of intelligence, that's a brain. And so you have a function of brains that operate in a system called mind, which is a dimension. So when you start talking about my brain, you talk about the organ. We're not talking about the organ. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't understand the organ. And most of my comrades out here listening now tell you that one of the things that we must be able to do is what? Define the parts and the function of the brain. So you got people around here talking about they smart and they got a brain. They can't even tell you the parts and the function of the brain. All right, they don't even understand what the true power and force of the brain is. Just like we talked about in part 2, what the soul is. So in dealing with black youth being an endangered species, the number one reason why we're an endangered species is because black being the original, all right, expression from the mind of God, you know what I'm saying, has an enemy. It has an enemy. And so when we deal with this element of who we are, you know what I'm saying, we have to take these young men out of the concept of being a human being. Yeah. So one of the things that we start doing is extracting this philosophy that I'm a human being. Do y'all really understand what you're saying when you say you're a human being? So, well, man, I thought that's what it was. I know you thought that's what it was. All right. Lil Wayne, the hip hop artist Lil Wayne, and much respect go out to Lil Wayne, regardless of what you say about him. Came out with an album a little while ago, I'm Not a Human Being, a little while ago. And a lot of people didn't understand, man, what are you talking about? You're not a human being. What you mean you're not a human being? The term human being comes from the 1500s. Yes, there's predate. We can go back further than that into the Latin and deal with Homo sapien, Homo erectus, Homo saulius. But so we had a technical difficulty. But anyway, getting back to this issue with human being. So, and I want you to listen close. So you had a man named Samuel Johnson. He was an essayist, philosopher in the 1500s, and he took the term human being out of the circle of scholars at that time, and they implied it and brought it into use. Just like a lot of you don't know that this term racism didn't come into popular play until 1939 in terms of it's being used in circle, how we bring words in and they become a part of the lexicon. So when you start identifying this being that was that God created and manifested, we use this term human being. Let me tell you what human being. Human being is an excuse not to be perfect, and this amazes me, and it should amaze you that our excuse in life is, well, I'm only human. Well, I'm just human. So you justify limitations and lack of effort and lack of productivity by saying I'm only human. All right, but when have you seen an imperfect flower, an imperfect tree, an imperfect wind, imperfect sea? What do you mean imperfect? You know what I'm saying? Lacking. So Adam in biblical scripture is made to have dominion and rule over creation. In the text dealing with the Quranic perspective, he goes a little deeper in saying that after the creator had fashioned this particular Adam, as you call it, and it breathed into this particular of its own self, all right, to fulfill the promise of placing a vicegerent or caliph in this dimension. He told the angels and all creation to bow down. You think that perfection is going to bow down to imperfection? Think about what you're saying. Perfection bowing down to imperfection. It don't make sense. And then a lot of you, even, it doesn't matter what spiritual school you ascribe to, that you really believe that man comes from an ape, a monkey. And what the hell would angels do bowing down to monkeys? You know what I'm saying? And it's very simple science. The lesser cannot create the greater. That's a simple scientific understanding. But you buy into it, just like you buy into Christopher Columbus discovering America. You know what I'm saying? And you buy into the Easter bunnies and Easter and not understanding the function of things, that if you really understood Easter, this dealing with the goddess Aprilis or Astarte, dealing with the fertility seasons of spring. And if you really understood the festival itself, how freakish what it derives from, a lot of you, if I told you that, you wouldn't even want to deal with me. And you've ascribed and took a brilliant and great man name and ascribed it to these festivals. So when we start talking about a human being, no, you're not a human being. And if you decide to wear that banner and that title because you say, hey, this is what I am, this is what I think of, then wear it. But what you really are, and we teach the youngsters, are an organic, an OCED, OCED, OCED. You're an organically creative, expressive being. I am a being that manifested from the mind of God, expressing itself through Ruh, Arash in Hebrew, you know what I'm saying, to take my light principle, which is a monad, which you construct into a soul to manifest the qualities of God in this dimension. I'm not imperfect. You know what I'm saying? And this is what's wrong with your young people. They want to be great. And you trying to restrict them to an ability of being an imperfect being with limitations on them. And they're not going to ascribe to that. All right. So you blame, the blame in this issue, and I have to sympathize with you because you bought into public education. What is public education or private education? Do you understand they're teaching your children to learn to a test, a STAR test, that they're being taught how to pass a test? They're not being taught how to use their mind and express their true qualities and gifts and how to create and design things. This is out of their nature. By nature, they are designers and creators. Because what you are made in what the image. So when we deal with this issue of consciousness, I had a relative ride me and say, well, he wanted me to explain consciousness. I say, well, this ability to decode and encode information deals with your true nature. This is what you were manifested to do. You know what I'm saying? And everything is in information. So consciousness is not only the written information, it deals with electromagnetic information, magnetic information, what you call spirit. It deals with chemical information and biological information, and being able to decode this information, you know what I'm saying, is what make one conscious. So we're not making cell phones to sell to one another. It's 13 chemicals, 13 minerals that have to go in to the construction of a cell phone. And we not producing or exchanging any one of those. And you probably could name the 13 ingredients. You know what I'm saying? So these children they're what are called indigo kids. Anything born after 1985 is an indigo kid. These children are being born at a time where they don't know nothing about a record player or a dial phone or a VCR. They don't know about a black and white TV. You know what I'm saying? They have been digitalized. And you're trying to give them an outdated education system. You call it the public education. And you don't even understand that America ranks number 90 in terms of producing at the educational standard, but has the top facilities. The buildings are beautiful. Yeah, beautiful buildings, but the quality of learning in these institutions are nothing. Right in Cuba, you have almost 100% literacy. But we're dealing with literacy rates at the 3rd grade that our children are forever behind. By the time they graduate, it's so bad that the syndicated press prints your newspapers on an 8th and 9th grade reading level. Your newspaper. You know what I'm saying? So what are we talking about? So when we start talking about human beings, no, you're not a human. You are organically creative, expressive being, and your destiny is to be great. So the whole element, the prescription, is a curriculum. Get this in your mind. The prescription is a curriculum. And it's a curriculum that is a prescription that is given to them in stages. All right. So when they come into a cipher, and they come in infused, and they can hear hip hop music, and they can see the symbology of hip hop, and it can be defined all the way down to the drum being a representation of our heartbeat. And so when you got certain types of music, there are certain things that is happening on the biological level. You know what I'm saying? And there's a correlation between this science and the man that you use in scripture called Moses. The name Moses comes from the word Musa, and Musa is where you get the term muses. And there are 9 muses that identify the different characteristics of music. And you trying to reach this generation. You want to know what's wrong with it. You either got a situation of rebellion or extinction. Extinction or rebellion. Now, when I start talking about rebellion, I'm not talking about this militant pick up guns and go to shooting and killing up all the white folks. No. Because the problem is, you could kill all of the white folks off the planet tomorrow, but now you got to deal with the niggas. So this issue now has become a pathology, not a skin color. So we're dealing with it. And even if you tried this stuff, because you got a lot of brothers still out there promoting this mess, and this man is a god of war. Got nuclear warheads, nuclear weapons that you don't even know how to build, let alone can afford to buy or could store. You know what I'm saying? Handguns and weapons that you can't even understand how to maintenance, not let alone operate. You start talking about war and uprising. No, we're not talking. We're talking about an economic and spiritual, cultural revolution. So you defeat the devil by exposing him. And when you expose him, he loses his power. All right. When you expose a bully, he loses his power. It's the same thing with anything. When you expose it, it loses its power. When you unveil it, it loses its power. It loses its mystery. You know what I'm saying? God will back us up with the forces of nature, and we'll get into those things. That is happening right now. We're changing regimes on this very planet as we speak. So when we deal with this issue of greatness, and I'll close on this. I want to close on this. So before we get to the term of them being great, so no one won't come back and say I didn't explain anything. So scientific urbanism was a curriculum that was born in 1996. It started with a concept of scientific, later urbanism, and then it was founded later in 1999 to 2001 on the teachings of the Thug Bible. The Thug Bible was an urban survival skill manual for people living in the inner city. Then it derived from being just a book, and it turned into a lesson. And the lesson required a fraternal mechanism that could be protected and not influenced by outside agitation or any type of European influence. So that the individual would go through degrees of development. All right. And the lessons all go up into 36 degrees. At the zero is at the top. Once one graduates through the 36, he goes into the cipher, and there's a ritual. And he now at this point, he has mastered 360 keys, you know what I'm saying, to the system of life. All right. And becomes an elder brick and probably a keystone, one who can unlock the keys of the mind of the youth. All right, so when we start dealing with this thing, we bring them in, and they have to answer these essential questions, and then they learn the. All right, we keep having these technical difficulties. We about through here, but anyway, so individuals come in, and they're given an understanding of their tools. They are brought in to understand that prior to the introduction to the curriculum, they are deformed. That all of us come to a point where our mold is deformed, and the goal is to bring balance into our lives. So they learn the mission statement. They get an introduction to the science of brickology and understanding how SU correlates with the hip hop culture. They learn the 6 qualities of manhood, the 9 qualities of womanhood. They learn the 12 rules to the game of life. They understand the 12 elements to expressing life, the 12 elements of a value system, the 7 virtues. They come through the curriculum, and then they get put into a regimen where they have to do daily activity worksheets. And in these daily activity worksheets, they're going to discover everything from language to current elements that are taking place in the hip hop culture. They learn the history of music, the history of the hip hop culture in particular. They learn how music has always been an essential ingredient in terms of calming ourselves and inspiring us to do great things. Because at the end of the day, what our young people want more than anything is to be great. And I challenge anyone right now, you know what I'm saying? And hear me out. There are 4 degrees of greatness that we explain in scientific urbanism. And the 4 degrees of greatness begin with number 1. Number 1 in the 4 degrees of greatness is that 85% of the people do not finish what they start. All right. So most people won't even finish what they start. And that's including public education. All right. The next thing is the Kobe Bryant level of degree. Well, Kobe, may he rest in peace. Not only did he master the IQ of the game and harness his talents and skill, but he was the hardest working individual. And he was able to identify his imperfections. And even after a game, he would go home, if he was in another town, go home and be with his wife, and then come back to the arena and shoot the shots that he missed. And would shoot shots. Can you imagine shooting 1 or 2 shots for 8, 9 hours, just that one shot? Because he refused to have imperfection when it was time to compete. All right, this is the Kobe Bryant state. And so it correlates into us not only having the IQ of the thing that we were born to do, but to be the hardest worker in that particular area that we were designed, and not accepting imperfection. And when we identify imperfection, the ability to go deep into ourselves and outwork everyone around us. Then we get to the 3rd degree, is the MJ, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan. This is another degree. Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan were no longer competing with the external environment. Mike didn't care nothing about Grammys and Emmys and all these music awards and Soul Train awards. Mike was no longer competing with anybody out there. Mike became music, the greatest entertainer of all time, because he was able to disconnect from external distractions and need to emulate anything, but to perfect. He had his own style. All right, not saying that he didn't borrow from other greats, and that's what the elders are supposed to do. Your James Browns and your Jackie Wilsons and all these individuals didn't contribute to his development, but he was able to take these things and take it to another level where he wasn't competing with the external environment. Michael Jordan. Mike was able to, it didn't matter, the competition, cheating refs. They was playing a different type of basketball then. And he was able, in that time, you had elite players to take on multiple players and do things with a basketball that was astounding and beautiful when he done it. He had an extra sense unlocked in between these individuals. That's the 3rd stage, when you can take your talents and your gift. I'm no longer competing with anyone out here. I have no adversaries and fears or anything out here. And then the last degree, the highest, is the Muhammad Ali. Ali not only destroyed the most dangerous fighters, these were killers. We talk about these modern boxers. George Foreman can dismantle a car with his fists. Sonny Liston can knock out a horse with his bare hand. Joe Frazier breaking bones. These people were phenomenal killers in the boxing ring. Not only did Ali defeat them, he took on the federal government and won. And his greatest accomplishment was the ability to take God and put God in the ring. Through a spiritual transformation from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali, he became the greatest. And at the point of his death, at that time, they say he was the most popular man in the entire world. You know what I'm saying? That was amazing. A lot of you don't know that he was the most popular man in the entire world. You know what I'm saying? And I ask you, brother, to go back and look at some of the movies about some of these people and retool your mind. So these young people want to do something great. They want to do something not done before. You understand? You see the type of gadgetry and things that are being designed. We're being robbed. A lot of like the brother that sold the algorithm for shopping, Tristan Carter, people, we take our ideas and we sell them, you know what I'm saying, to the enemy instead of creating our own. At SU, we created our own tennis shoe. I asked some of you, bro, what have you created for your people? We talk about inspiring our youth and setting up for be a role model. What have you created for our youth? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of dudes try to take articles and elements, you know, from the slave master and parade them. I'm talking about what have you made or produced for our people? You know what I'm saying? Anybody can get out of here and make money. You know, they trained us to be good seals and watchdogs and circus bears and things of this nature. You know what I'm saying? That's anybody can do that. So a lot of us now, we think because we've had the privilege, all right, to accumulate some form of what we consider to be wealth. And there's a difference between riches and wealth. Riches is money. Wealth is when you have health and family and good associations, spiritual refinement, mental clarity, along with reaping the rewards from the fruit of your labor. All right. And this is where these young people are at. And this is how we have to reach them. So it begins with them mastering the scriptural context. We're going to close. We keep having these technical difficulties. So remember, scriptural context deals with 114 books in the Quran, 66 books in the King James Version of the Bible. That gives us 180. Then we do 25,000 years of history, 25,000 years of science, 25,000 years of mathematics, 180. That's the total 360 degrees of divine wisdom and understanding. With this being said, and this being done, we will move to do part 4. I have videos from brothers. I give shouts out to all of you brothers. I like the comments today from I think yesterday I talked to Brother Taylor with the Alpha program. We support those type of projects. As long as they're being conducive and effective in the community, we support those kind of projects. If anything in this broadcast has been useful, then use it. If anything has been offensive, we apologize. And all things that have been beneficial and good and productive are from the Creator. You brothers that are fasting, continue to focus and stay sturdy so you can receive your blessings. Remember, sign up, go to YouTube and log on to the Scientific Urbanism channel and watch these videos.